Hey guys, long time no see. So yeah, it's been a while since I created my last video, but I finally got enough time to start creating more content for you guys. So in the upcoming weeks, expect more tutorials, vlogs, and even urban exploring videos. But today, I'm going to be discussing on how I passed my AFOQT exam, aka the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test. It wasn't the easiest test to do, but it was doable. In this video, I'll be discussing my own personal experience from taking the exam and how I prepared for it. Also, I'll be answering any common questions you guys may have had on the exam. And lastly, if I did miss any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to get that answer for y'all. Alright, let's get started. In order to prepare for the exam, I went over to a friend that recently took the AFOQT a couple years back, and luckily enough, he handed me these two books he personally used to study for the test. So day in and day out, for the next couple months, I studied these things. And aside from that, I also use these free AFOQT practice exams from the internet. So here's a couple websites I've used to study for the exam. Basically, I studied these questions over and over again, just like the questions I had on the books I used. I'll have the links down in the description below. They won't be the same questions you see on the exam, but the format will be the same. So I would like to point out that if you guys are really serious about passing this AFOQT exam, be sure to study the most latest and most up-to-date book material or online test exams. And also I would like to point out that if you guys already know what type of officer position you want to try and achieve, be sure to only just, study those sections for the exam. For example, if you're not trying to be a pilot, you don't need to waste time studying the instrument comprehension section, So just keep that in mind. I signed up for the test 2 weeks prior before taking it because I got selected for an Airman Leadership School slot. So in all honesty, I only had 2 months to study for the exam, which I definitely do not recommend doing. Be sure to study for at least 6 months to a year. I took my test at the Base Education Center at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. I believe the start time for the test was around 07:30 in the morning, so I got there about 15 to 20 minutes early. I make my way to the classroom, I sign in, and I sit at the closest desk that I see. At this point, I'm kind of observing on how the classroom looks, so assumingly I believe there were RTC cadets in there as well as enlisted people. I noticed that there were a couple rules set out in front of the board in front of us, and I noticed that you were not allowed to have your own watch here, so I had to take that off. But luckily enough, there was a giant clock right in front of us. 15 minutes passed by and things started to finally happen. At this point, she's starting to call out our names one by one, and once she gets to my name, I make my way towards the front of the classroom where I hand her my ID and she signs me into the book. And after that, she starts handing out my exam booklet, Scantron sheet, pencil, and a scratch paper. I would like to emphasize that you guys are taking this on a Scantron sheet, not on a computer. So if you already didn't know, you actually don't have a lot of time to take this test. Depending on the section you're in, I recommend spending a limited amount of time on each question. So for instance, if you're on the math section of the exam, be sure to spend no more than 2 minutes on each question, because failure to do so could cause you the inability to answer the rest of the questions on that section. This test was created specifically this way because as an Air Force officer, you're going to need to make choices on the fly. Get it? I don't know exactly what section you guys will be starting on, but from my experience, I started on the arithmetic section. I'll be honest, as soon as I saw that first question, I was like, holy crap, this test is going to be hard. So a quick tip on this exam, if you don't think that you'll fully be able to answer that question immediately or quickly, just skip it entirely. And if you do have time at the end of that section, you can go ahead and go back to it. So this part of the exam, you had 29 minutes to answer 25 questions. So yeah, I'm going through each question one by one, and out of nowhere, the instructor pretty much says, "Time's up, put your pencils down." And it definitely caught me off guard. So please don't make that same mistake I did, and look up at the clock every now and then to make sure you have enough time to answer the rest of the questions on that section. That being said, if you guys know you have 5 minutes or 2 minutes at the lowest, pretty much at this time, just drop everything that you're doing, because at this point, you do not have enough time to effectively answer the rest of the questions you have at that section. I would like to point out that you guys get no penalties for getting wrong answers on this exam. Meaning, if you did have to randomly bubble in answers at the end of the section, it could possibly mean getting right answers, So don't be afraid to guess if you do run out of time. So for the duration of the test, I believe we had 3 to 4 breaks throughout that 6-hour period. You guys should definitely get a good night's rest the night before and a decent breakfast in the morning. You also don't have the ability to go at the bathroom at your own leisure, so please plan everything accordingly. Alright guys, so that's all I have for the personal section part of this video, so let's go ahead and answer those questions. How many times can you take the AFOQT? You only have to take this test a total of 2 times in your lifetime. So if you do decide to take it another time, you'll need to wait approximately 6 months after taking it the first time. Also, please keep in mind, whatever you get the second time around, whether it be higher or lower scores, it'll completely override whatever you got the first time. If you do manage to fail this test 2 times, you can try to get a waiver to take it a 3rd time, but that is highly unlikely. What are the minimum passing scores for the AFOQT? Well, all test takers must achieve at least a 15 in verbal and 10 in quantitative. For people aspiring to be a pilot, you'll need to have a 15 in verbal, 10 in quantitative, 25 in pilot, 10 in navigator, and a combined pilot navigation score of 50. Are you allowed to use a calculator on the exam? And how will you be taking it? Well, first off, you are not allowed to use a calculator on the exam. You'll be doing all your calculations on a scratch paper. And lastly, depending on your location, you'll be answering all your questions on a Scantron sheet and not on a computer. How long are the AFOQT scores good for? Well, luckily enough, your scores will never expire. How can you sign up for the AFOQT exam? Well, locate your nearest military base and contact their base education center. From there, you'll be able to speak to an advisor and set up an appointment. And lastly, you'll receive more information via email. What are some ways you can study for the AFOQT? You can use up-to-date learning materials such as AFOQT preparation books, online practice tests, and flashcards. To make your practice much more realistic, look up the specific times you will have in a section and set up a timer for that session. Do not use calculators, watches, or computers to help you. The AFOQT is a multiple choice exam. Are there any penalties for guessing? No, absolutely not. If you do manage to miss questions on the exam or get anything wrong, you will not be penalized. In fact, if you do start to run out of time on a certain section, be sure to just drop everything that you're doing and start randomly bubbling in the rest of the questions you have in that section. There is a probability of getting something right in the questions you guessed on. So do I have any more helpful links or information on taking the AFOQT exam? If I missed any questions you guys may have had on the AFOQT exam, be sure to comment down below and I'll do my best to get an answer for y'all. Alright guys, if you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Also, be sure to check out my other content. And as always, new adventures ahead.